The war room of the collective flagship hummed with the soft glow of holographic displays. Grand Admiral Zyxthan stood before the tactical matrix, his 4 eyes narrowing as he studied the data streams. For 300 cycles, the collective had conquered species after species, their military doctrine refined to mathematical perfection. Every battle was a calculation. Every victory was predetermined by superior processing power and flawless logic. "Run the simulation again," Zyxthan commanded. The junior tactical officer, a young collective member named Vorn, obeyed without question. The holographic display shifted to show the human colony world of New Bristol. Red markers indicated collective fleet positions. Blue markers showed the pathetic human defense force. "Admiral, the outcome remains unchanged," Vorn reported. "Our fleet outnumbers theirs 4-1. Their weapons are inferior. Their ships are slower. Victory probability stands at 99.7%. Zyxthan nodded slowly. The collective's tactical algorithms had never failed. They analyzed enemy movements, predicted responses, and calculated optimal attack patterns with perfect accuracy. No species had ever defied the mathematics of war. "What of the human commander?" Zyxthan asked. Vorn pulled up a profile. A human female appeared, her face weathered and her eyes sharp. "Captain Sarah Chen, 42 standard cycles old, former cargo hauler before joining their military, no formal tactical training. The algorithm rates her threat level as minimal." "Prepare the fleet for invasion," Zyxthan ordered. "We attack at dawn local time." The collective fleet moved into position around New Bristol like a noose tightening around a neck. 72 warships, their hulls gleaming with weapons designed to crack planets, formed a perfect sphere around the colony world. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the INS Defiant, watching the enemy fleet surround them. Her ship was old, a retrofitted mining vessel with weapons bolted onto its hull. The 18 other ships in her defense force were in similar condition. Freighters, tugs, and civilian craft hastily converted for war. "They're in position, Captain," her first officer reported. Lieutenant Marcus Webb was a young man with nervous eyes. "I can see that, Marcus," Sarah said calmly. She took a sip of coffee from her dented metal mug. "Pretty formation, isn't it? Very neat, very organized." "Captain, we can't fight that fleet. The math doesn't work." Sarah smiled. "The math, Marcus. Let me tell you something about math. Math is for accountants. War is for people who refuse to die." She pressed the comm button. "All ships, this is Chen. I know what you're looking at out there. I know the numbers don't favor us, but I've been in tight spots before. Ran cargo through the Kepler belt when pirates had us boxed in. They had the math too. Know what happened? I flew through an asteroid field during a solar flare, crashed into a pirate frigate and used the explosion to boost my speed past their blockade. Lost half my cargo and my left kidney, but I'm still here." A few nervous laughs crackled over the comm. "Now listen carefully. I'm going to give you orders that will sound insane. Do them anyway. Don't think. Don't calculate. Just do what I say when I say it." On the collective flagship, Vorn watched with growing confusion. "Admiral, the humans are not evacuating." "They will surrender soon," Zyxthan replied. "No, Admiral, they are moving, but their movements make no sense." Vorn studied the display. "The algorithm cannot determine their formation pattern. They appear to be flying randomly." "Randomly? That is not a valid tactical option." "I know, Admiral, but look." The human ships were scattered with no apparent order, some flying in spirals, others making sharp zigzag patterns. The algorithm is trying to predict their movements, but the probability calculations are returning errors. For the first time in his long military career, Zyxthan felt something strange. It was uncertainty. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Destroy them all." The collective fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced through space toward the scattered human ships. But the human ships weren't where the algorithm predicted they would be. Captain Chen's voice crackled across her fleet's comm channel. Now, execute maneuver Crazy Ivan. The human ships suddenly reversed course, using their main engines to brake hard while spinning on their axis. It was a maneuver that made no tactical sense. It wasted fuel, reduced speed, and exposed their vulnerable engine sections. It was also something the collective algorithm had never seen before. The energy beams, targeted at where the ship should have been, passed harmlessly through empty space. Recalculating, Vorn muttered. Admiral, the algorithm needs more data. One of their ships just performed a barrel roll. Another is flying backward. A third appears to be spinning in place. On the Defiant, Sarah Chen was grinning. Keep them confused, people. If it makes sense, don't do it. If it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. Captain, the INS Firefly reports they're taking fire. Tell Firefly to dump their cargo bay, all of it. Their cargo bay, that's just scrap metal and old equipment. I know, do it. The INS Firefly released tons of debris into space. The collective sensors detected the mass ejection, and the algorithm began tracking each piece as a potential threat. Thousands of new contacts appeared on their tactical displays. The algorithm slowed. It was not designed to process chaos. Admiral, our targeting systems are overwhelmed, Vorn reported. There is too much debris. The algorithm cannot distinguish between threats and garbage. On the Defiant, Sarah had another sip of coffee. Phase 2, everyone. Let's show these walking calculators what happens when you try to predict crazy. The space around New Bristol had become a swirling maelstrom of debris, weapons fire, and ships moving in patterns that defied all tactical logic. The collective algorithm was approaching something it had never experienced: complete confusion. Admiral Zykeston gripped the railing of his command platform. Concentrate fire on their flagship. Admiral, we cannot lock weapons, Vorn replied. The Defiant keeps changing course. Every time we calculate a firing solution, the ship moves in an unpredictable direction. Ships do not move unpredictably. Calculate all possible vectors and fire at them simultaneously. We tried that, Admiral. The captain flew her ship through the engine wash of one of our destroyers. The radiation scrambled our targeting sensors. By the time they cleared, she was gone. The Defiant suddenly dove directly toward a collective cruiser, weapons blazing. Then it released something. Small objects, hundreds of them, attached themselves to the cruiser's hull. What did they deploy? Zykeston demanded. Mining charges, Admiral. Industrial explosives at that proximity to our hull. The cruiser exploded from within. In seconds, a ship that had taken 10 cycles to build was reduced to expanding debris. How? Zykeston breathed. Mining charges are for asteroids, not warships. No rational commander would use them in ship-to-ship combat. The human captain appears to be using whatever tools are available, regardless of their intended purpose, Vorn said carefully. Admiral, I do not believe the humans are following any tactical doctrine we have encountered. They are fighting to survive by any means necessary. Order all ships to fall back to defensive positions, Zykeston commanded. We need to analyze this situation. The collective fleet pulled back. The human ships, battered but still operational, gathered around New Bristol like faithful guardians. The first phase of the battle was over. Captain Sarah Chen slumped in her command chair. Status report. We're at 60% combat effectiveness. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 6. 15 ships remaining, all damaged. The enemy fleet has pulled back. They're confused. Good, that's how we stay alive. How did you know that would work? Marcus asked. The debris, the mining charges, the crazy maneuvers. I didn't know anything, Marcus. I just knew that if we fought like they expected, we would lose, so we fought like they didn't expect. She stood up, stretching. When I was running cargo through the belt, I learned something important. The pirates assumed I would act rationally, so I did the opposite. I risked everything on moves that made no sense, and because they couldn't predict insanity, I survived. You're saying we won because we're crazy. I'm saying we won because we're human. We can think outside the lines, make up new rules, do things that have never been done before. That's not crazy, Marcus. That's creativity, and you can't calculate creativity. On the collective flagship, Zykes then studied the recorded footage of the battle. The algorithm is updating, Vorn reported. It has added the humans' unconventional tactics to its database. Will that help? Zykes then asked quietly. How do you add chaos to a database? The humans do not follow patterns, they create new ones. Every battle they will do something different. How shall I classify the threat level, Admiral? Zykes then considered. His entire career had been built on certainty. Now he faced an enemy that existed outside calculation entirely. Unknown, he finally answered. Classify the threat level as unknown. 3 days passed in tense preparation. The collective fleet grew as reinforcements arrived, bringing the total to over 100 warships. Captain Sarah Chen had used those 3 days well. She gathered every ship captain for a meeting that lasted 12 hours. They called it Operation Ridiculous. This is insane, said Captain Yuki Tanaka of the INS Brave. You want us to tow asteroids into the battle zone. Isaac Newton is the deadliest weapon in the universe, Sarah replied. Mass times velocity. No shields can stop 1 billion tons of rock. And the firefighting foam. The collective uses energy weapons. Those weapons require clear targeting solutions. Foam creates a reflective cloud that scatters sensor readings. Yuki began to laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had accepted the absurdity of their situation. All right, Operation Ridiculous it is. The collective attack came at dawn on the 4th day. The human fleet is towing asteroids into the battle zone, Vorn reported. Asteroids, Zykes then studied the display. What purpose could this serve? Unknown, Admiral. The algorithm has no data on asteroid deployment in naval combat. The collective fleet opened fire, but the asteroids provided cover, absorbing fire that would have destroyed the smaller ships. Redirect fire to the asteroids. That will require significant ammunition expenditure, Admiral. Do it. The collective fleet concentrated fire on the asteroids, but destroying each one took time the humans used to release their firefighting foam. Admiral, our sensors are being disrupted. There is particulate matter scattering our targeting beams. Zykes then watched in disbelief as his view screen filled with white mist. All ships advanced through the cloud, close to visual range. The collective fleet pushed forward into the white mist. Release the asteroids, Sarah ordered. The human ships cut their towing cables. The asteroids continued on their trajectories. In the foam cloud, the collective ships could not see them coming. The first collision destroyed a collective destroyer instantly. 1 billion tons of rock struck the ship like a hammer striking an egg. More collisions followed. Admiral, we have lost 11 ships to asteroid collisions. The algorithm did not predict this. Fall back, all ships fall back. When the battle was over, 30 collective ships had been destroyed. Sarah Chen watched the enemy retreat. How many did we lose? She asked. 6 ships, Captain. 6 ships, hundreds of crew members. The cost of victory was never cheap. 6 months passed. Word of the Battle of New Bristol spread across human space. A cargo hauler with no formal military training had defeated a superior alien fleet using asteroids and firefighting foam. Sarah received a promotion. She was now Admiral Chen, commander of the newly formed human irregular fleet. I don't want this, she told the Joint Chiefs. I'm not a real military officer. That's exactly why we need you, General Morrison replied. Our academies teach doctrine. The collective has algorithms that can predict everything we've ever done. We need someone who can do what's never been done. The human irregular fleet was unlike any military force in history. Sarah recruited based on one criterion: creativity. Engineers who solved problems with duct tape. Pilots who flew by instinct. The next target was the Sigma Draconis mining colony. The collective was sending 200 ships. "What assets do we have in the system?" Sarah asked. "Mostly mining ships and cargo haulers." Sarah smiled. "I love mining ships." She called it the Sigma Draconis surprise. Mining ships were converted into weapons platforms, and the asteroid field itself was turned into the largest trap in human history. "You want to rearrange the entire asteroid field?" asked Captain James Carter of the local defense force. "Controlled detonations on key asteroids. The miners know exactly how to fragment them. When the collective fleet enters the kill zone, we turn the entire asteroid field into a debris storm." The collective fleet arrived exactly as predicted. The new commander, Admiral Krexval, believed superior numbers would overcome any human trickery. "The human presence is minimal," his tactical officer reported. "A few mining ships. They have abandoned this colony, advanced through the asteroid field." Sarah watched from her flagship, the INS Defiance. "They're entering the kill zone. 60% of their fleet is inside the field. Wait for 80%. "Admiral, this seems wrong," the tactical officer warned Krexval. "The mining ships are not fleeing, they are waiting." "Scan those mining ships." "Admiral, the cargo bays contain explosives, thousands of tons distributed across the field." "All ships, reverse course immediately." But it was too late. "Light it up," Sarah ordered. Throughout the asteroid field, mining charges detonated in carefully sequenced patterns. Asteroids shattered, sending fragments in precisely calculated directions. The debris formed walls, barriers, traps. Then the second wave of charges detonated. Asteroids that had been hollowed out and filled with explosives became massive fragmentation bombs. Collective ships, packed tightly by the debris walls, had nowhere to escape. "Admiral, we are losing ships. The field is collapsing around us." When the battle was over, 147 collective ships had been destroyed. The collective high command was in crisis. In 7 months, they had lost nearly 300 ships. Their algorithms were useless against human tactics. Grand Admiral Xeno stood before the High Council. "The algorithm functions exactly as designed," Xeno explained. "But the humans do not behave according to patterns. They create new patterns for every engagement." "Then create a faster algorithm," demanded Counselor Threx. "Speed is not the issue. Our algorithms predict rational behavior. The humans take risks that no rational species would consider. They do things that make no logical sense. Then they are insane." "No, Counselor, they are creative. There is a difference." Xeno paused. "In 300 cycles we have faced many species. Each one fought according to established doctrines. Each one could be predicted. The humans invent new doctrines for every battle. They fight with imagination." "How do we defeat imagination?" "I do not know. Creativity cannot be predicted because it has no algorithm." "What do you recommend?" Xeno took a deep breath. "I recommend negotiation. We should seek peace before this war destroys us both." The council erupted in outrage. "Negotiate with primitives." "We can continue this war," Xeno said when the chamber quieted. "We can send more ships, but every battle they will surprise us. And slowly we will lose, not because they are stronger, but because they are more adaptable, more creative." "And what would we gain from peace?" "Survival, and perhaps something more valuable. The humans have something we lack. If we can learn from them, we may become something greater, or we can continue fighting and learn nothing except defeat." The debate lasted for days. In the end, pragmatism won. A message was sent to human space. Admiral Sarah Chen received the message. They want to talk. Do you think it's a trap? Marcus asked. Maybe not. They've lost too many ships to be playing games. Sarah looked out at the stars. 7 months ago, I was a cargo hauler who got lucky. Now I'm an admiral receiving peace overtures from an alien empire. What are you going to tell them? I'm going to tell them yes. Not because I trust them, because I want to understand them, and I want them to understand us. The peace conference took place on a neutral space station. Admiral Xeno led the collective delegation. Admiral Sarah Chen led the human one. I have studied your tactics, Xeno began. I have analyzed every engagement. I still do not understand how you conceived of them. When I look at a problem, I don't just see what's in front of me, Sarah replied. I see possibilities, ways to use things differently than they were designed. Our species does not think this way. We process information. We follow logical paths. And that makes you incredibly effective against enemies who think the same way. But against someone who doesn't, you're fighting an opponent who isn't playing the same game. Xeno leaned forward. Can you teach us to think as you do? It was not the question Sarah had expected. You want to learn creativity. I want to understand it. For 300 cycles, our dominance has been based on superior calculation. Now we face an enemy that shows us the limits of calculation. I don't know if creativity can be taught. It's more like a way of seeing the world, of being open to possibilities instead of focused on certainties. Then how do humans develop this ability? By being human, by growing up in families that encourage questions, by facing problems with no easy solutions. Sarah paused. We're not better than you. We're just different. We evolved on a chaotic world where survival required constant adaptation. And we evolved on stable worlds where success came from efficiency. We learned to perfect existing methods rather than develop new ones. Xeno was quiet. Perhaps this is why we have conquered so many species, and perhaps this is why we cannot conquer you. The peace negotiations continued for weeks. Underlying the difficult conversations was something unexpected: mutual respect. The Treaty of New Bristol established peace between humanity and the collective. It included trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and educational programs where humans would teach creative thinking, and the collective would share their vast scientific knowledge. Admiral Sarah Chen signed the treaty. As she set down the stylus, she thought about how far she had come. You look thoughtful, Xeno observed. I was just thinking about how unpredictable life can be. A year ago, I would never have imagined this. Our algorithms would have agreed with you. They calculated a 99.7% probability of human conquest. I suppose we all learned something about the limits of probability. We learned that creativity has no algorithm, that imagination can't be calculated. She extended her hand. Xeno reached out with his own appendage. They shook, two species that had fought and learned and finally found peace. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The collective, influenced by their contact with humanity, began to develop their own forms of creativity. They remained logical, but they learned to ask new questions, to value imagination alongside efficiency. Humanity gained access to collective technology, but more importantly, humanity gained confidence. The knowledge that they could face any challenge because they possessed something that could not be quantified. Admiral Sarah Chen eventually retired to a small house on New Bristol. Young officers came to visit her. How did you know what to do? They always asked. I didn't know anything. I just refused to accept that the situation was hopeless. And when you refuse to accept hopelessness, your mind starts looking for alternatives. Sometimes crazy alternatives, but alternatives nonetheless. So creativity is just stubbornness. Creativity is stubbornness combined with imagination. It's looking at a problem and refusing to accept the obvious answers. It's asking, what if? when everyone else is saying impossible. The young officers would leave inspired, and Sarah would return to her garden, content in the knowledge that whatever challenges humanity faced in the future, they would find a way through. Because creativity has no algorithm, and that was humanity's greatest strength. The stars continued to shine overhead, full of wonders yet to be discovered, and somewhere out there, a young cargo hauler was looking at an impossible situation and thinking, what if? The story of humanity's encounter with the collective became one of the most studied events in galactic history. Military academies across dozens of species analyzed the battles, trying to understand how a technologically inferior force had defeated a superior enemy. But they missed the point. It was never about the asteroids or the firefighting foam or the mining charges. It was about the willingness to try things that had never been tried before, to look at a problem from angles that no one had considered. Creativity cannot be predicted. It cannot be calculated. It cannot be contained in any algorithm. It is the spark of imagination that exists in every thinking being, waiting to be kindled by necessity, nurtured by courage, and unleashed by the simple refusal to accept defeat. The collective learned this lesson at great cost, but in learning it, they gained something far more valuable than the worlds they had sought to conquer. They gained growth. They gained the understanding that the universe is far more interesting when you cannot predict what happens next. And humanity just kept doing what it had always done, creating, innovating, imagining new possibilities where others saw only limitations. Because that's what humans do. And no algorithm can ever change that.